It may not have been the ending that fans wanted, but another Eagles season is in the books. And on the plus side, the team have now made the playoffs in 2 of 3 of Doug Peterson's first years as Eagles head coach. That's quite the contrast to what we saw under the Chip Kelly era, and it did get me thinking, where are those draft picks that Chip Kelly brought to Philadelphia now? How many are still on the Eagles? How many have gone on to bigger and better things? How many are even still in the National Football League? We know that Chip Kelly wanted full roster control, and at a time he did have that. So this 3-part series is going to take a look at each of the 3 classes that Chip Kelly had in Philadelphia and how the players have progressed since entering the National Football League. This isn't about his coaching, we all know that was significantly flawed, but this is an episode of Where Are They Now? I've divided these classes up into 3 separate categories: hits, average picks, and misses. So a hit would be a player that's either still on the team or has gone on to have a successful NFL career. An average pick is someone that's maybe still a backup or a depth player somewhere in the National Football League. And a miss is a player that just isn't any of those and has either come back out of the National Football League or has just been labelled a bust for whatever reason. So if we start off with 2013, it's safe to say that Chip Kelly started out red hot. He brought in 2 key offensive playmakers for the Eagles in franchise right tackle Lane Johnson and franchise tight end Zach Ertz. Both of those players have received lengthy contract extensions during the Doug Peterson era. Both have been named to Pro Bowls, and of course both are now Super Bowl champions after last year's dazzling run. In fact, Zach Ertz, as we all know, is coming off a historic season in which he broke the record for most receptions by a tight end in an NFL season, surpassing Jason Witten's previous record. And while Lane Johnson's 2018 was a little bit down due to that slow start where he battled injury, he rebounded back and reasserted himself as one of the top tackles in the NFL. In fact, you could make the argument that both of these players are the best, if not one of the best, in their respective positions in the entire National Football League, and the early signs were there during those first couple of years under Chip Kelly as well. It's scary to think that Zach Ertz was catching his first touchdown pass from Nick Foles when 5 years later he'll be doing the exact same thing in Super Bowl 52, and Lane Johnson during that time has really blossomed into this absolute behemoth of a pass protector that we all know and love today. The next pick was LSU's Benny Logan, a defensive tackle that went on to play for the Eagles through the first season of the Doug Peterson era, a year in actually which he totaled a career season in sacks, tallying 2.5. Logan was an elite run defender during his time in Philadelphia, and upon a move to Kansas City in 2017, where he'd refit that nose tackle role, he actually led all Chiefs defensive tackles in tackles. He was second on the team in tackles for loss and tied 6th in sacks with 1.5. 1 year later, he then moved to the Tennessee Titans as a 28-year-old, and unfortunately from there, things go a little bit downhill. Logan was only able to tally 14 tackles in 15 games for the Tennessee Titans, unable to beat his way out to a starting position, and it seems as though his career has started to stagnate just a little. The rise of the likes of Jarrell Casey have made things very difficult for Logan to get on the field, and injuries certainly haven't helped him in that regard, and he now enters a free agency class with that reputation as a premium run defender, but doesn't really offer much production elsewhere, so it'll be interesting to see where he goes. From an Eagles perspective, they certainly got the best out of him. You can only consider that draft pick a hit from the eyes of Chip Kelly. In the next round, it will be Matt Barkley that heard his name called, the quarterback out of USC, drafted with the hopes of maybe 1, providing an insurance policy for Nick Foles, and 2, that USC quarterbacks can, believe it or not, sling it at the next level. Well, in his time in Philadelphia, that didn't really go to plan. Barkley was less than dazzling during his few minimal appearances with the team, including a loss to the Giants where he threw just 1 interception, and when Nick Foles went down with injury against the Cowboys in October, threw 3 interceptions in 20 passes. It wasn't his grandest look. So after a failed tenure with the Eagles, Matt Barkley then ended up in Chicago, where of course their quarterbacks were the almighty Jay Cutler and Brian Hoyer. Both of those quarterbacks combined 2 wins between them, which kind of gave Matt Barkley a window of opportunity. Now, albeit he went 1 for 5 during that time, but tossing 8 touchdowns and 14 interceptions may be an improvement over what we saw with the Eagles. Anyway, if we fast forward to 2018, when the Buffalo Bills are in a complete train wreck scenario, the season's gone to pieces, Josh Allen was injured, they turn to Matt Barkley, who was a backup at the time, and the former 4th round pick walks onto the field against the New York Jets, completes 50 15 of 25 passes, averaging 9.3 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and looks like an absolute god amongst men. So who knows, maybe the Matt Barkley saga isn't done yet. As of right now, I'm sure he's going to be looking for some backup money, whether that's with Buffalo, whether that's somewhere else. I think he's shown enough since entering the NFL to prove he can at least sling it when needed. He can come in as an absolute emergency and try to sustain an offensive drive. The decision making does seem to have got better since his rookie season with the Eagles, and that's bound to be expected when you look at the quarterbacks and the coaches and the schemes that he is now quite well versed in. So overall for Chip Kelly, this pick I would say is quite a miss, but overall, it's alright, it could be worse. In the next round, it will be NC State's Wolf who will be selected by the team with the intent of trying to solidify a safety position that was made up of a struggling Nate Allen, Patrick Chung, and special teams maverick Cole Anderson. Unfortunately for Wolf, that really didn't go to plan. There was a flurry of injuries that eventually led to his release in 2015. It was a real shame. Since then, he spent time with the Jaguars, with the Colts, and with the Redskins on their practice squads, but has been out of the league since 2017. But his story doesn't end there, because amidst all of the criticism concerning the Eagles' medical staff over the last few years, where Emmanuel Acho came out and made a big statement, Wolf followed suit and stated the following. 2013, tore PCL. Forced back in to mess it up again. Missed rest of the year. 2014, 4 MRIs on my knee in 5 months. Couldn't squat 135 pounds in that month span, but nothing was wrong with my knee, in inverted commas. Got a microfracture, 2015, out 9 months, cleared for 5 days, another major procedure. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say that there was some setbacks for Wolf, and whether this is justified or not, he is absolutely right to be livid if that's the case. It's a real shame if those injuries have ruined what was a very promising NFL career. Let's be honest, he was a real sleeper in that NFL draft class. He had 255 career tackles to his name, had 7 forced fumbles during his time at NC State, and that at the time was the 5th best record in school history, and he was a very intelligent player as well. So where is Wolf right now? Well, that's a very different question. There was no NFL action for Wolf this year, and it seemed that his 7 starts in the NFL for the Eagles are behind him. He did, however, have a brief spell with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the CFL, but was ultimately cut before the start of rookie camp. But if we're to look at Wolf's social media posts, what we can see is a man who's retired from football within the last couple of months, but is still graciously giving to his community. In fact, if we look at this Instagram post back in August of last year, we can see someone that's helped give food and clothing to over 70 different people within the Philadelphia region, and that just speaks volumes about the character of Wolf, someone that maybe hasn't had his ultimate dreams realised or flourish in the way that he'd hoped they would, but is still so willing and happy to give back to the community that he loves and really enhance the lives of others. That speaks volumes about the type of man that Wolf is. So hey if you're listening to this and you want to tell your story, give me a shout. We've got a website, we've got podcasts. I would love to have you on and tell your journey from the start of where you grew up to where you are now. It will be a blessing. And then come the sleeper picks. First off, there's Joe Kruger, who is the younger brother of NFL talent Paul Kruger, and is built in a similar vein. 6'7", 275 pounds, was a versatile player who could fit as an outside linebacker or a defensive end depending on scheme. But unfortunately, injuries too hampered his career. So he was placed on injured reserve by the Eagles, and after that, struggled to really find a place. He had tryouts with the Steelers, he had tryouts with the Lions, but unfortunately, no real permanent home was found. That's not to say things won't change though. In 2017, Kruger attended the Utah Utes Pro Day, and in 2018, his agent was still trying to see if he could find his player a home, and I believe that to be the case moving forward as well. The man is built like an absolute monster, 6'7" as a defensive end. There is no reason why teams shouldn't be taking a look at this guy, maybe bringing him in for a workout or something like that. There's still plenty of upside if he's fully healed from that injury. It's all just a case of believing in that process. So as of right now, Kruger may be off the radars of many, but by the time Pro Days roll around again, do not be surprised if he still attends that Utah Pro Day, if he's still trying to get his name heard, and if his agent is able to get some workouts planned for him. Also selected in the 7th round of the NFL draft that year was a man who is most famously known for the quote, "You can't make a thizzot into a wife." That man is, of course, current Bills safety Jordan Poyer. Now, the Eagles originally signed him to a 4-year deal. It was around $2 million, I believe, off the top of my head. And throughout training camp, he was battling for a defensive back spot among the likes of Bradley Fletcher, Kerry Williams, and Brandon Boykin. So not exactly elite talent to face up against, but unfortunately, after a bit of a rollercoaster rookie season, Poyer was eventually waived by the Eagles after just losing his spot on the depth chart, I believe, to Sean Prater at that time. The Cleveland Browns were the team that eventually decided to take a flyer on him, and he was named the backup safety behind none other than, of course, Deshaun Gibson. But in 2013, it didn't take him long to make his mark. In fact, he ended the season with a total of 18 tackles. 6 of them came against the New England Patriots, and 1 year later was when he would be named that backup safety by Gibson. He had 21 tackles to his name during that campaign and 2 forced fumbles as well, one against, memorably, the New Orleans Saints in those cold December months, and then things really started to pick up. He actually earned his first start in place of Gibson, who suffered an ankle injury, and then during that year ended up starting a further 3 games. So during that 14-game span, he had 4 starts, 43 tackles, 2 interceptions and a sack, and it seemed as though his career was projecting right to the stars. He was a man on a mission, and in 2016 he earned the starting role after the Browns lost Gibson to free agency. So now you've got a starter. He was a former 7th round pick playing for the Browns, and things were going extremely well. He started to make some big time plays in the first 6 games of the season, but during the second quarter against the Tennessee Titans, he was hit by an illegal blindside tackle from Antonio Andrews, and then he was immediately rushed to hospital, where he was later diagnosed with a lacerated kidney and a possible concussion. So that ended what was a crazy start to the season. He had 39 tackles in 6 games. His previous career high was 43 and 14, so that shows you the level of production the Browns were getting from him. But then 1 year later, the Bills came to the rescue in free agency, and Sean McDermott signed Poyer to a 4-year, $13 million contract. So he's now at the end of the 2nd year, and he just posted a 100 tackle season in 2018 for the Buffalo Bills. So Jordan Poyer has developed into a very, very strong starting safety for the Buffalo Bills. He played in all 16 games in 2016, 15 during his first season with the Buffalo Bills. It is safe to say that this man has been an absolute sleeper in the NFL draft, and the Eagles may have lost a good one there. And the final pick of that draft for the Philadelphia Eagles was defensive tackle David King. He was selected with pick number 239 out of the College of Oklahoma, and he spent time on the practice squad. He was eventually signed to a futures contract before being waived that following season. Then during December of that year, the Seahawks poached him from the Eagles practice squad. He was then waived from there. And it was a similar story with the Kansas City Chiefs and then the Seattle Seahawks, who both teams throughout a course of 2 years had seen plenty of David King. But during his career, he did play in several games, in fact 17 from 2014 until 2017, totaling 2.5 sacks, 7 tackles and 4 quarterback hits. So he was productive when on the field. The problem was getting on there, and as a backup player kind of on and off of practice squads, your opportunities are bound to be limited. He was then traded to the Tennessee Titans in exchange for a 7th round pick in 2017, and 1 year later the Titans released him from their team, and since then David King hasn't been on an NFL roster. Now he does still boast an intriguing skill set, his size speaks for itself, but let's be brutally honest here. If you are a 7th round pick in 2013 and you have only just been released from a team in 2018, and most of that time has been spent on and off of practice squads, on and off of scout teams, the occasional game, the occasional flash of production, that says a lot that you're able to cling on to those roster spots. And for 5 years there are some people that get onto a practice squad and then they're gone a year later. So that's a huge testament to David King, and hopefully he can land on his feet sometime in the future. If we look back at that 2013 NFL draft class, that was surprisingly impressive. Lane Johnson and Zach Ertz have become absolute stars in this league, and Benny Logan contributed heavily in the run during his time with the team. Matt Barkley has got stuff to prove just yet. We've seen that against the Bills. Wolf is unfortunately outside of the league. But then you've got a name like Jordan Poyer, who in the 7th round has become a solidified starter for the Buffalo Bills. That's a relatively strong draft class. The only 2 misses would be Joe Kruger and David King, I would argue. Wolf obviously hampered dramatically by injuries. In terms of an Eagles perspective, the 3 home runs are with those first 3 picks of the draft, which are the ones you're guaranteed, like you want to hit those. If you're not hitting early, that's bad front office management, it's bad scouting. So it's safe to say that those opening few picks were very strong from Chip Kelly. But what are your thoughts, guys? Does this bring back any memories? Are there any more draft classes you want to see? We're of course going to take a look at 2014 next week and the dreaded pick of Marcus Smith and how the rest of that draft class turned out. But if you like this video, guys, I know it's something different, please hit that subscribe button. It means the absolute world to me. We've got another film room video coming up later this week. From myself, Liam Jenkins, you can follow me on Twitter at LiamJenkins21. I'll see you next time.